Welcome back. So I admit it, this week I've been a little busy watching the World Cup, cheering on Team USA and covering other news in Washington. So I can tell you all about what Michael Bradley learned from his dad at Princeton, the reasons I think Tim Howard is one of the best goalies the U.S. has ever had, and I can tell you just how many times Suarez has bitten other players. But what I admit I can't tell you this week are the important nuances of some of the major Supreme Court rulings. So how will these big rulings impact the business community? Here to talk about that and more, two of our regulars, Peter Morisi, professor of economics at University of Maryland Smith School of Business, and Jonathan Aberman, managing director at Amplifier Ventures. No, you cannot have my way.
Are you pledging a sorority at University of Maryland?
I have other costumes for you, Peter.
Good luck for you, Rebecca.
And Jonathan, I'm going to start with you. We don't need a costume. You were selected this week by the Northern Virginia Technology Council, a very influential.
Congratulations,
very
John.
You don't even know for what yet.
Yeah.
Standards are going down everywhere.
He hasn't even heard the award, and it's a really impressive one. Hottest friend to the entrepreneur. What does that mean?
Oh, it's obvious, isn't it? We're on TV.
There was a guy who was selling apples, and John gave him a few extra bucks,
Exactly.
and they said he was a philanthropist and venture capitalist.
Peter's so jealous right now. Okay,
No,
so
not at all. The short story is that I spent a lot of time working on promoting entrepreneurship here in town, and the NVTC has an annual award to award it, and it happened to be awarded at something called the Hot Ticket event. So
now you're not just a friend to the entrepreneur, you're the hottest.
John does a lot of good work for the community, and this is appropriate recognition.
Well, I'd like to
Thanks,
say
Peter.
we're part of the reason you're hot. I'm just going to stand by that.
I agree with that.
But before we get to Supreme Court rulings, because there are some important ones, Peter, I want you to stand by a column you wrote saying that you think that the economy is poised to take off, you said, and you give some different facts and figures where you say that we're on our feet again. Make that case.
Well, essentially, the consumer's in a lot better shape than they've been in a long time. They've deleveraged from the Great Recession. Housing values are up, so they'll be spending more. We're not going to be growing like we did during the Reagan years, which is close to 5%, but we will be growing better than we have in the past, and that's good news.
Well, I just have to say, Jim in Georgia wrote in, your columns are carried nationwide, and he said, did the Obama administration hijack Morisi's column, or has pot become legal in Maryland? Jim in Georgia saying, Peter, I'm looking for investors for my unicorn ranch. He's arguing that you've got record low labor participation rate, you've got declining wages, you've got record student loan debt. You're standing by your column, I'm guessing.
There's no better place to go up from than the bottom.
Well, yeah,
that's all I can say.
I want to help my friend here because the point that Peter's making, which is a very, very set of good points, is that the United States economy has a lot of good things going for it. We have hit bottom, we're coming back. But the bigger thing for me in Peter's piece is he pointed out that if we made some changes in how we handled foreign trade, for example, and some other aspects of our energy economy, we could have growth close to 5%.
Yeah.
And that was the bigger point.
I'd
of the
love to have
article.
Jim in Georgia here today, but I'm going to have to cut you off and let your column speak for itself, Peter, because I really do want to get to the Supreme Court ruling, starting with the EPA ruling, because as soon as that EPA ruling was handed down, I got my breaking news alert from the New York Times saying massive defeat for the Obama administration. A couple of hours later, they kind of walked that back once the Obama administration had their say and said, we won. Who won, Jonathan?
You know what? It's like Lake Wobegon Supreme Court. Everybody won in this decision. If winning is, I got something of what I wanted, people who are concerned about limiting executive power got something out of the decision.
So let's sum it up. What the court said is, yes, Obama administration, you can enforce current law, but they chastised the administration and said, you can't go beyond the law as you were trying to do.
Right. So the court upheld the ability for the administration through executive power to regulate carbon, and that's fine. But it also said you can't unilaterally change how the law applies by changing the people that are subject to it. And we could go more into nuance, but that's why you can look at it that way.
One of the things the court was concerned about was subjecting these requirements to smaller businesses because they become too onerous.
And businesses are concerned
over and
about
over again, we're seeing situations where the Obama administration has done that, and it's making very difficult this reshoring that we're supposed to be getting of manufacturing coming back. Small manufacturers, small banks can't deal with all this regulation. The Obama people just won't listen. Well, the Supreme Court said, listen up, fella. You can't be writing rules for operations with 25 people and not expect to be held accountable here.
So, Jonathan, lots of important rulings this week.
Remember, I'm not a lawyer.
No, that's fine.
There's an important ruling coming up on Monday that you're going to weigh in on. But first, I want to ask, Peter, of the other rulings this week, which ones caught your eye? You had everything from the president being chastised on recess appointments to cell phone privacy to Aero devices that are streaming television networks.
The Aero devices were very novel. People would actually buy their own little dime-shaped antenna, and then the company was selling the aggregation of the signals. The Supreme Court said
it was a way to circumvent cable and lots lots of other things.
Right,
and on
and
their
they struck
TV.
that down, which I think on a technological basis was ill-reasoned. But still, the consequences, you're going to face higher cable rates. This is going to tighten the cable monopoly. And sadly, it's an example of political influence peddling as that's going to be now handled in the administration. The CEO of Comcast provides a venue for the President of the United States to frequently raise money in his own home.
Yeah. Look,
I don't know what that has to do with the Supreme Court.
No.
ruling
But the
this
point
week.
is, it's going to. If we get this merger with Comcast and Cox, it's going to be.
Time Warner. Yeah,
Time Warner.
exactly.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Comcast and Time Warner. It's going to solidify their grip on the cable market, and that's
Yeah.
really not a good thing with this ruling.
You do say
Right.
that this ruling will not have major implications for all technology because the court made clear
Right.
that this is a limited ruling specifically to
Listen,
this
what
case.
Peter is pointing out, and it's very important, is there's a big issue right now, generally in our economy, between innovators who are trying to destroy things, because that's what innovators do, and the existing infrastructure which wants to maintain what they have.
Creative destruction versus
Right.
monopoly power.
Exactly.
And
Disruption is all
monopoly
the
power
buzzword.
is the enemy of your viewer and my reader.
And that's where a liberal and a conservative join together, which is
You
we
see
both
us
wanna-
arguing about
No,
this?
It's really interesting.
I can't tell.
No,
You're so loud. It's just,
sorry.
as a woman. No,
Well,
no.
we started-
Okay.
Oh,
You started out talking about
the
World Cup.
shrinking violet.
I'm a mom. I like to use our inside voices, but no, this is lively. Okay, but
Yes.
you think the bigger ruling is coming on Monday in the Hobby Lobby
well,
case. Tell the audience what the
Hobby
significance
Lobby
of
is a
that
case that's framed as about religious freedom. Can a company that's offended by a contraception requirement opt out of the law? And it is a very interesting and a highly explosive issue. What I'm concerned about, interested in putting that aside,
You got 10 seconds.
the precedent of allowing companies to have the rights that people have to opt out of law is highly troubling to me.
Do you think it's going to have broad implications, yes or no?
Yes, I do. I don't think people should be forced to spend their own money on things that contradict their religious beliefs.
We didn't ask for that. We asked for yes or no. But we got Peter Marisi, we got Jonathan Aberman, and we're glad we did. Stay with us. We'll be right back after the break.